Panda, 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 Panda. I got broads in Atlanta, just to be in the family. Credit cards and the scammers, hitting the licks in the van. Legacy, family, legacy, look like a panda. Going out like a Montana, honey killers on their hands. Legacy, family, legacy, family. Legacy, Danny, selling ball, candy. Man on the macho like Randy, chopper go out to the granny. This nigga pull up your family, hope the killers understand me. I got broads in Atlanta, just to be in the family. Credit cards and the scammers, hitting the licks in the van. Legacy, family, legacy, look like a panda. Going out like a Montana, honey killers on their hands. I like a squash
Kung Fu Panda makes me cry. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried my tear glands dry during the series at age 9 during my first viewing of the second movie, and even now I still tear up whenever I put on either of the first two movies in the series. Over the years, I've come to appreciate just how masterful these movies are, from the animation and fighting choreography to the beautiful soundtrack, scenery, and characters. There's just so much I love about the series, but it's the second movie in particular that just leaves me with the stupidest grin on my face, shaking my head and just going, wow. This movie is just masterful. It takes all the things that already made the first movie amazing and dares to crank it up even higher. Bigger places, more fights, and a different challenge both in the antagonist and in the protagonist themselves. I know it might sound like I'm placing this movie on a super high pedestal, but honestly, I just love it that much. Although, a lot of people ask me why I enjoy this series so much. I don't really blame them, honestly. I mean, their movie's called Kung Fu Panda. I often have trouble explaining just what it is I love about this series so much, especially its sequel. So I figured I'd explain it the best way I know how. Make a super in-depth video analysis on the best movie about why it's just so goddamn good. Because it is just so goddamn good. Kung Fu Panda 2 follows our hero Po in the Furious 5, now routinely defending the Valley of Peace. However, a new foe rises in the form of a disgraced peacock prince named Shen, wielding a weapon that has the power to conquer all of China and mark the end of Kung Fu. It's a canon. It's a canon. That's all it is, really. What? Po and the Furious 5 must travel across the world to prevent Shen's future crusade, while Po must also conquer the past as revelations of his origins begin to resurface. Alright, let's get this out of the way. These movies have awesomely good visuals. Like, it is insane how much attention to detail is in them. All the imagery is super vibrant and pops right out of the screen without distracting too much from the characters. Even one or two shots of Gangnam City that appear for like 10 seconds are fully modeled and rendered, which is insane. The colors also remain consistent with the characters as well, with the bright gold and yellow following Po and the Furious 5, while harsh reds and charcoal blacks follow Lord Shen and his army of soldiers and cannons. One of the best examples of this is Gangnam Palace, particularly the set piece it takes place in. It starts off decorated in a regal gold and yellow before going full on red as the fight against Shen and his army escalates until the palace is completely coated in darkness. Shen's charcoal blacks and harsh reds overtaking the scene. The only things illuminating are the cannonballs and flaming arrows, which are, you guessed it, red. Visual storytelling, maybe? Not only that, but the backgrounds and set pieces look like traditional Chinese paintings come to life with the medium of animation. Man, I say that a lot in these videos. This scenery is brought out to its maximum potential, perfectly towing the line between realistic and fantastical. Really, the art direction in this movie is just fantastic. It's certainly not Ghibli level, but for a 3D animated DreamWorks movie in 2011, it's some top-notch stuff. The problem with these super artistically driven movies, however, is that they can sometimes get a little boring after a while of looking at how pretty everything is, and the characters can sometimes come off a bit flat. It's kind of a running motif in these movies that the more important characters, even the ones with the most poignant dialogue, have some of the best humor. Even Shen and the Soothsayer, two of the most serious roles in the entire movie, don't suck the life out of the room and have me cracking up at some points.
How dare you? What did I fucking shout you down the mic for? Playing your fucking mouth, mate. I'm a grown man. You sent me a message first, yeah? I live in Smethwick, Birmingham. If you want the fucking brawl, come down Smethwick, ask for Danny G. I'll come out of my house and I'll break...
I was surprised at how well Gary Oldman could balance cunning militaristic maniac with annoyed smart guy surrounded by stupid people, and he plays off Jack Black really well. It also really illustrates how they went on completely different paths in their lives with traumatic origin. How they handled the past going forward is a beautiful motif throughout the film that's done so well. But more on that later. Speaking of, everybody agrees that Jack Black basically is Poe. He brings such life and enthusiasm to the character that I don't think anybody else could really do, and it's clear that he loves it.
I use my noodle soup!
I'm a soup.
If you look up some behind the scenes footage, he actually does several kung fu moves during recording sessions, which just goes to show how eager he is to play the role. He even delivers on the more emotional moments of the story, not phoning it in whatsoever. Jack Black brings the whole movie together with his wit and charisma, and it shows. Honestly, it's hard to watch him in this series without smiling. As for the Furious 5 themselves, even they get the job done pretty good. Tigress really comes out as her own character, and her friendship with Poe is really believable. While I would have preferred Jackie Chan to have more than just 11 lines, he has some pretty good moments, as well as the rest of the Furious 5. Besides, if the movie had decided to flesh them out, it would have been too much and distract from the main focus of the movie, Poe. Poe is doing pretty great when the movie starts off. He has kung fu, he has friends in the Furious 5, and his father's business is booming.
How's business? Booming!
He has everything he's wanted since before the events of the first movie, and life is good. But then a new enemy approaches. Shen, armed with firework cannons and a threat to everything Poe has just achieved. Not just kung fu, but new questions about his past and what that means going forward. The enemy isn't just Shen, but what he represents. The future. Shen's cannons are a clear example of this, a new technology rolling in to destroy established traditions. The cannons themselves are a direct result of breaking tradition, reinventing fireworks to create weapons of mass destruction. Shen himself is consumed by the prospects of the future entirely, but we'll get more to that later. The future is a scary thing. We can never be certain about it, and even when we have a pretty good idea of what's to come, we're afraid to accept it. In the case of Poe himself, it's especially terrifying considering the new revelations about his past. This causes him to question who he is because he's afraid of what that means going forward. The only thing he has left is kung fu, so when Master Ox tells him that
Kung Fu is dead.
it has a lot more of an impact in Poe's mind. Combine that with the fear of not even knowing your own origins and you have yourself a perfect mental struggle smoothie. Oh yeah, and the whole Shen will take over China thing. But there's a lot more to Shen than just taking over China. Shen is probably my favorite DreamWorks villain. Like, ever. And while Tai Lung might be the better villain in the series and a perfect foil for Poe, I just love Shen way more. Besides, villains don't always need to be direct foils of each other. Shen was just much more subtle and had more of a need for power than Tai Lung. And supported by Gary Oldman's insane performance and the genius writing, Shen just steals every scene he's in. He arrives in Gongmen City like he owns the place, which I guess he sort of does. Shen is smarter than everybody there and he knows it, making him eternally confident in his conquest. So it doesn't just scare you that Shen's a crazy genius. He's a crazy genius who is prepared and knows he's going to win. Not through hand-to-hand combat though. He's good, but he's no master. So he invents a new way to win. An intellectual villain that's always one step ahead. Love it.
Warning. You are no match for our...
Parry this, you filthy casual.
Skip it up and that.
But the best villains have the best flaws, and to say Shen is flawed would be like saying peacocks have feathers, whatever, not my best analogy. Shen's crusade, while expertly thought out, is founded on Shen's obsession to
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Okay, not exactly like that movie, but you get the point. It's during this last scene with the soothsayer that we see Shen's true motivations. Shen is completely fixated on the future, using the past as an excuse for his tyranny. He is obsessed with his takeover of China, because in his mind it is what he rightly deserves. He sees his parents as the villains who unfairly exiled him from Gangmen City, despite him committing, genocide, and that they stole his happiness away by banishing him in the first place.
My parents hated me. They wronged me. And I will make it right.
He can't let go of the past and is pushed beyond the point of no return. Even through his best efforts to get rid of the past, represented first by tossing his father's throne aside and then destroying the past altogether, it is fueled by the desire to, in Shen's eyes, prove his parents wrong. It's in this final scene of Shen and the Soothsayer that cements his character for me. His resolve is tested and he falters for a moment before pushing back and showing that he's too far gone.
The dead exist in the past, and I must attend to the future.
It gets rid of any hope that he may have been secretly good, which I really appreciate. Like, sure, it gives him emotional justification that the audience can sympathize with, myself included. But the really interesting part here is that it's a relatable goal with a morally questionable execution. Sort of like Thanos and why people consider him such a deep villain. The execution / philosophy is pretty flawed and overall not great, which is just more of a testament to Shen's amazingly written character and how much thought went into it. Nobody can be blamed but Shen. He chose this. Even in the final confrontation with Po, he still doesn't give in because then his worst fear would be realized. All this was for nothing. To him, this is all he knows, and to accept the alternative would make himself responsible for his own actions. A reality he can't accept. So Shen is a mad tyrant who lashes out because of his past scars to prove to his dead parents that they were wrong and that he will finally have the power he deserves because it's right. But one panda is living proof that it's wrong.
Inner peace, inner peace, inner peace.
This is probably one of my favorite sequences in animated media of all time. In fact, it's so good that I'm going to steal a few pieces from a whole artistic essay my brother wrote on this scene. Sorry, not sorry. At this point, Po has struggled to come to terms with his past. He keeps shutting it out because it's too painful. He has to control it. He was happy, he was loved until Shen's army invaded. But he has to let go of the illusion control. Like Oogway told Shifu all those years ago. He has to let it flow. As he does the formations and movements to control the beat of water, he begins to remember more and more details until the animation changes. The memory isn't done in the usual anime-like style of his dreams. It's real now, and he's finally realizing it. He sees it now. His mother loved him. She loved him so much that she gave her own life so that he'd live. Po doesn't know how to take this. It's painful, but the soothsayer offers him necessary words.
Your story may not have such a happy beginning, but that doesn't make you who you are. It is the rest of your story, who you choose to be.
The score here by John Powell and Hans Zimmer is the perfect blend of over-the-top triumph and gripping storytelling. The bit here is actually a reprise of Pool of Sacred Tears from the first movie, which I absolutely love. It is the moment Po realizes the past doesn't matter or decides who he is. He can't keep clinging to it. What matters is now, and who he chooses to be. The montage shows this without any words. What happened isn't who he is. He chose to be a hero, to be the dragon warrior. So now it's up to him. Let the past define his actions, or let go of what happened and accept what comes now. Because the scars of the past just don't matter. His friends are in danger, Kung Fu will end if Shen succeeds, and Shen's on his way. What's he gonna do about it?
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
In a last bout of triumph, Po frees the five.
What?
I said he frees the...
What?
He frees the five! Po and the five, joined by Masters Croc, Ox, and Shifu, manage to slow Shen down, but Shen decides to kill one of his own generals and blows up several of his own ships and crew so he can pass. Just in case you forgot, Shen's evil. Po looks like he's giving up, but through his newfound inner peace manages to make the impossible possible. In what seems to be his last moment, he manages to deflect the cannonball almost flawlessly. Time after time, shot after shot, he dodges and parries, the cannonballs themselves turning from red to yellow as they leave his hands like he's somehow redirecting the malice out of them. Thanks for that, by the way, Cinnamowins. Love ya. Until finally, the ships and cannons are destroyed. Shen is absolutely dumbfounded. After everything, Po still managed to find peace. It makes no sense to him. If Po could find peace, why couldn't Shen? Shen did so much to him. He killed his parents. He caused so much pain. How did he find peace? Po tries to tell him that scars heal and that all that stuff from the past just doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you choose to be now. But of course, Shen can't accept it. So he lashes out, ultimately causing his own demise. Shen doesn't even fight back against the cannon or run away. He dies on his own terms and accepts his fate. Kind of tragic, really. He'd rather die than live on in his failure because he didn't want to learn from Po. Afterwards, Po reunites with his father and assures him that no matter where he came from, he is still Mr. Pig's son.
Hey!
The Kung Fu Panda trilogy is probably one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Right up there with Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. I'm not joking. And Kung Fu Panda 2 reminds me why I love animation and movies to begin with. Only with something like this can you get such amazing visuals, such life and joy and sadness and heartbreak, and only this level of writing can really make me a crybaby mess. With themes of the past and future, an intelligent and tragically beautiful written villain, it all weaves together into a beautiful, moving tapestry of film. At the end of the day, Kung Fu Panda 2 is about trauma and choice. What it teaches you is that the trauma of the past doesn't define you, and it's your choices that come now that determine who you are. Because you are not your pain, you're what you believe you can be. I love the first movie, and the third is pretty good, but this film just reaches such a high level of mastery that no amount of words can accurately describe or justify how I truly feel about it. It's just awesome, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Kung Fu fighting, everybody, Jack Black. Come on.
Unrehearsed, mind you. Remember, there's no rehearsals here.
Oh boy. This was a doozy to make, but I had so much fun. It took a while to get out because, you know, finals, exams, that's all very fun to have. But yeah, I hope you liked this video. I really like this movie and nobody was talking about it, so I just I felt like I should. So yeah. Also, huge thanks, absolute huge, humongous thanks to Cheaty for helping me out with the script and everything. He looked over it, provided some really insightful input, and is probably one of the only other people I can properly geek out about this movie with. So yeah, go check his stuff out. It's pretty great. I'm actually going to be featuring a voice role in one of his upcoming videos on a new channel he has called Unficto. So yeah. I hope you liked watching this. I'm not gonna promise that the next one will come immediately soon, but I will try to make more. Alright, that's about all from me. Feel free to subscribe if you want to. So yeah, thanks.